Los Angeles, 1941. City buzzing with war fever, sirens wailing, bombers rolling off the lines. But beneath it all, the army uncovered something buried, a shaft beneath the warehouse. They sent 20 soldiers down. What they found were tunnels not made by men's smooth walls, strange carvings, bones scattered in the dark. Then came the scrape of claws. Lanterns shook, rifles raised, green eyes opened. It wasn't a patrol, it was a trap. Most never made it back. And the few who did swore an oath of silence, because what lived under Los Angeles wasn't supposed to exist, and it still might be there. So before we continue, please make sure to like and subscribe to support the channel, and comment down below where you're watching from. Thanks. It was Los Angeles, 1941. The city ran hot like a motor with a cracked belt, smell of oil, hot tar, sea salt. Women with scarves and bright lipstick waited outside factory gates. Men in coveralls smoked and spat and went back in to build wings. Bombers, fighters, things with teeth of metal. War coming like a slow freight you could hear miles out. We drilled at the armory, march up, march down, eat, clean rifles, sleep. The radio barked orders and news. Europe on fire. Hawaii, a rumor of heat. Our trucks wheezed along Alameda. The depot yard shone like it had sweat. Air raid drills at night. Sirens moaning like the city had a fever dream. We killed the lights and peered at the sky. Blackout shades. Half the town convinced a Zeppelin would drift in and drop hell on Hollywood. I was a corporal then, not much to boast about. Good at keeping time. Good at keeping my mouth shut. My name doesn't matter. The men I lost do. I still count them some nights. Their faces hang in the dark like lanterns swinging. Top ran the line. A bulldog with a busted ear. He called us knuckleheads and motherless goats, then fed us extra rations when he thought no one looked. Our lieutenant was new. A butter bar with clean boots and soft words, but a stiff spine. He listened. That's rare. I liked him. We loaded crates. We checked fire extinguishers and hose reels and gas masks. We listened to rumors dressed like facts. U-boats off the coast. Saboteurs in the canneries. Grease on the stairs. Nails in the tires. The usual. What wasn't usual came in a plain envelope. The paper was smooth. The words, careful. The stamp from the engineers. Not the bridges and dams boys. The other ones. The ones who asked you to go somewhere quiet and not bring a camera. The order read simple. Support a site survey beneath the warehouse near downtown. Bring lanterns. Bring rope. Bring the kind of men who don't chatter. We were just soldiers. You tell us to go down a hole, we go down the hole. You tell us to dig, we dig. You tell us to forget, we forget. That's the job. A cold wind came off the river that morning. Low gray sky, smell of rain and electric wire. Trucks went east through a spine of brick and broken windows. The warehouse sat on a side street near the tracks. No sign. A locked chain-link gate. A blue sedan with government plates waited under a lean-to roof. A man in a suit watched us from the shadows like a bored cat. Inside, the floor was dusty concrete, marks from old crates, rad droppings like pepper. In the far corner, a square of newer boards. And in the middle of that, a steel ring bolted into the floor. The ring sat around a shaft, 6 feet across. A draft came up slow and steady. It smelled like the ocean at low tide. And something else. Sulfur, burned match, bad egg. It scrunched the nose. We looked at each other but didn't say anything. The suit said, "Thank you for coming, gentlemen." He did not tell us his name. He said they'd found an old tunnel during a remodel. He said the city was full of old tunnels. Bootlegger runs, service conduits, flood channels cut by men who didn't want their boots wet. He smiled without his eyes. He said the engineers wanted to look, and could we please be the muscle? Top rolled his shoulders. "We can be whatever you pay for," he said. The suit looked at the lieutenant. The lieutenant nodded. "We'll go see," he said. So we geared up, rope over shoulders. Lanterns, carbines, a couple shotguns, the radio on a strap. We checked knots and belts. We cracked jokes with flat voices. 20 some of us, give or take, men with names I still see on headstones. Daniels, Lee, Peralta, Nick the cook with the busted thumb who could skin a rabbit in 1 minute flat. Big Louie from Nevada, who never lost a wrestling match. My friend Harlan, who wrote letters home in neat tiny print and never swore in front of a church. We set chalks under the trucks. We checked our laces. We stood around the hole like kids at a swimming pool. Then we started down. Before we dropped, there were whispers. There always are. The guard posted overnight had heard scraping. He said it sounded like a rake dragged over a slate floor. He said he saw a shadow move like it had a mind, and then didn't. The foreman who'd supervised the remodel said the men refused to come back after they pried up the first boards. He said they'd found the skull. He said it looked old. He said it looked wrong. He would not explain wrong. In the mess the night before, one of the cooks told a story. How the papers in the 30s ran with a local crank who swore there was a city under the city. Gold maps, catacombs, lizard people. Everyone laughed. The maps were supposed to be shaped like an owl. The cook waved his fork and did a hoot. The men threw bread at him, but he didn't laugh when he washed the plates later. I saw his hands shaking. Some stories stick like burrs. The lieutenant didn't trust stories. He wore truth like a jacket, snug and plain. But even he kept looking at the floorboards, like he felt the hum under his boots, like he could hear something that wasn't there. He rubbed a coin in his pocket. He did that when he thought, soft clicking of metal on ridges. It was a lucky dime, he said. His father gave it to him when he left Kansas. I used to watch that hand and know which way his mind turned. We had a sergeant from Oklahoma who'd done river work. He squinted at the shaft. He said the ring was new. The hole wasn't. He spat. He said the draft meant a long run, open space. Maybe a bigger chamber beyond. He said we'd know more when we dropped. There were birds nesting in the rafters, pigeons. They rustled and shifted and watched us with bright little eyes. One bird hopped toward the hole, peered down with its head cocked, and then flapped away in a hurry. Its wings made a hard sound. Men noticed. They said nothing. Men notice more than they admit. I pulled my straps tight. My palms were sweaty. I told myself it was just a hole. I told myself I'd been in holes with worse things in them. I told myself to breathe like the chaplain taught us, in through the nose, out through the mouth. I tasted salt and dust. Someone coughed. Someone laughed too loud. The radio hissed and then settled. All right, Top said. Enough gawking. We go down. We look, we come back. No hero moves. No wandering. You see something strange, you call it. You don't poke it. Clear, clear, we said. We went down into the dark. Lanterns swung and made the walls breathe. Rope glided over palm. The shaft was cut clean, not some hack job. The stone was smoothed in rings, like someone had carved a throat for a giant. And I say stone, but it wasn't exactly stone. Some sections looked poured, like melted rock cooled in a mold. You see that in lava tubes. I saw a picture once. That same skin. Slick, shiny in places. In others it was etched with lines and whorls like fingerprints, too big to fit any hand. We climbed past the warehouse's stinks. Oil, mouse piss, mold. Down to an air that didn't belong to our world. It held water and metal and eggs and something old. Something that had never seen sun. We reached a landing, 6 feet wide. The shaft went on below, but there was a cut into the side. A hallway weighted, black as a mouth. We stepped in and held our breath. The lantern light showed walls that weren't brick. They weren't sewer pipe. No seams. No rivets. Just a curve that met itself like an inside-out bowl. The floor had a faint pattern. More lines. Spirals like something crawled there once when the rock was new and left its path like art. Harlan whispered, "This ain't no utility tunnel." "Then what the hell built it?" Lee whispered back. "More importantly," Top said, "what's in it now?" We moved in a column. The radio man stayed in the middle. The lieutenant walked up front, and I shadowed his right shoulder. Our boots made damp thuds. The sound went away fast, swallowed by the curve of the walls. We walked a while. Time got slippery. No wind. No motion. Just our steps and our breath, and the soft tick of lantern mantles. Now and then we saw marks. Scratches on the wall not made by a shovel or pick. Claw scores, I'd call them, if I believed in claws that big. 3 lines together, deep. The edges chipped the lantern light like little mirrors. At one bend we found bones. Not many, a scatter across the floor like white teeth. Old, crumbly. Some long and thin, some blunt. Something had chewed them. The ends were shiny and hollow. Nick the cook muttered, "It was a dog or a big rat." No one argued, no one believed him. Deeper in, the smell of sulfur thickened. Our eyes ran. The hairs under my nose curled. The radio clicked and popped like it had ants. "Keep it close," I whispered to the man wearing it. He nodded, jaw tight. We came to a fork. One arm curved left, one right. The floor here held a depression like a bowl. Dark stain in it. The lantern made it shine. Not wet, just streaked. Men stepped around it, careful not to put the soles of their boots into that mark. We did not say why. A scraping sound came up from the right-hand tunnel. Not loud, not close, like a rake way down a hall. The men stomped. The scrape stopped. We waited. It started again after a long minute, a little closer. The left-hand tunnel gave a soft breath, like something exhaled a long time ago and forgot to finish. "Left," the lieutenant said. Slow, we went left. Another landing opened on top of a drop. The lantern showed a void down there. The light fell and found nothing. Something down there moved and the light ran off it like water. You ever shine a lantern on something slick and it throws your face back at you cut to pieces? That. The scrape picked up again behind us. Same distance. It knew how to keep space. "Eyes up," Top said. "We're not alone. We already knew." We passed carvings then. The walls weren't just smooth. They held shapes. Spirals and circles and knives of lines, stitched together into something that looked almost like writing. Not letters. More like maps you couldn't fold. Some marks seemed newer than others, like someone had freshened them with a tool. The tool made a groove sharper than time. I saw something else in one swirl, a figure drawn like a child would. 2 legs, 2 arms, long head, mouth like a beak. I blinked. The lantern danced. It was just lines again. My tongue tasted like a penny. My palms were slick. The scraping sound got closer, and then it stopped for good. We reached a chamber. The chamber spread out in a circle. The ceiling arched high like a church with the steeple ripped off. Columns rose around the edge like the trunks of very old trees. The floor had that same ring pattern, and in the center stood a low thing like an altar or a table. It was poured from the same, not rock. Its top was carved all the hell with whorls and cuts you could lose a finger in if you got dumb. We made a ring without thinking. Lanterns held up. Rifles angled out, breath slow. The radio man knelt and checked his box. "I still got you," he whispered into it. A graveyard hiss came back, no voice. He shrugged, small. His eyes looked big in the lantern light, like a rabbit's. 3 shapes stepped out from behind a column. I didn't count my heartbeats. I counted the seconds between our breaths. There weren't many. They were tall, 7, maybe 8 feet. Hard to say when your brain's trying to crawl out your ear. They were shaped like men who forgot how to be men. Shoulders, a torso, 2 arms, 2 legs, but the lines were wan. Too long here, too heavy there. The skin looked like rock that remembered being a lizard, scales that caught the light and threw it back in wet chips. Eyes like a snake's, but set forward like a hunter's. Slits brighter than any lantern. A green glow that wasn't light so much as life. Their mouths were wrong too. Not a crocodile's. More like you'd take a man's mouth and pull it back to the ears and pack it with knives. One tilted its head the way a coyote does when it hears something you don't. They hissed. Not loud, a low gutter sound that rolled in the chest. Our lantern mantles fluttered like that hiss sucked the air. The lieutenant did not scream. He did what he was paid to do. He said, "Weapons ready." Very calm. Then he said, "Fire." We fired. The room stuttered with light. Muzzle flash painted the columns with lightning. Rifles cracked like dry boards. The nearest thing lunged. It moved fast and weird, like a film cut wrong. 1 second it was near a column. Next it was near my face. I fired again. The shot hit it in the chest. The bullet sparked. It made a sound like tap on a bull. It did not stop. "Shit," Peralta shouted. It's bouncing right off. The shotgun did better. The first blast took a piece off his shoulder. A gray chunk spun and hit the floor and skittered like a crab. The thing hissed again and drew back, not from pain, but from surprise. Like we'd broken a rule it didn't think we knew. Then more eyes opened beyond the columns. Dozens. Maybe more. A slow bloom of cold green stars. They watched us the way wolves watch a line of cattle at night, patient, certain we'd make a mistake because we were made of mistakes. I remember the smell then, deeper sulfur, and something like crushed sage, and the warm copper of blood. It was in the room and I couldn't tell whose. Back, the lieutenant said. Back by teams. Stay in the light. We stepped, fired, stepped. The thing stepped too. They liked the edge of the light. They licked it with their eyes. They didn't like the shotgun, but they didn't hate it enough to leave. The radio man spun dials. He whispered into the block, "Say again." The block spat back static and a pop like a blown fuse. Something moved behind me and the hair on my neck tried to rip itself out. Harlan went down with a cry that cut off. One long hand, 3 thick fingers, claws curved like black glass, hauled him into the dark between 2 columns. He kicked, he spit, he swung his rifle like a bat. The claws sank into his belly and made a wet sound. He screamed once more. The sound ended sideways like a door slammed. Then nothing. I went for him. Top grabbed my belt. "No," he said, soft. Final. The kind of no that means you'll both die if you ignore it. I didn't ignore it. I'm a coward who lived. That's worse in some ways. It's why I get to tell you this and wish I couldn't. We saw a second man go then, Big Lewis. He rushed the table in the middle like he'd tackle a steer. One of the things slipped left, very clean, no wasted motion, and clipped his legs with a sweep of its tail. I hadn't noticed tails. There were tails. Old muscle when it still remembered the ocean. Louis flipped, hit the floor alive, and was gone into a side passage like a rope pulled him. The lantern light cut off after 10 feet and showed teeth and claws and an arm, and then not even that. "Move," Top barked, voice cracking. "Move now." We moved. Back through the hall we'd come. The eyes followed. They did not rush us. They didn't have to. We were in their house. The radio coughed and a voice finally came. "Say your status." It sounded far away, like talking through wool. "Contact," the radio man said. "Multiple. Unknown. Hostile. We are." The rest got eaten by the tunnel. Bullets pinged the walls and made angry bees. One of the creatures got bored and reached in like a man grabbing a fish from a bucket. It missed me by inches. The claws scratched the floor and threw sparks like someone striking a flint for a campfire we didn't want. We reached the landing by the shaft. We formed a huddle, lanterns high. The lieutenant counted heads. He got to 12, then 13, then 14, then stopped. "Where's Peralta?" he asked. Peralta was gone. I didn't hear him go. That's a bad thing to know about yourself. The dark can take a man and you won't notice because you're too busy keeping your own skin. You can make peace with it. Or not. I didn't. I just learned to sit with it so it doesn't tear my face off every night. We hooked the rope fast. We didn't bother with order. We went up in a choke, boots kicking, belts snagging, hands shook. The lantern flame wobbled. Something climbed the wall below us. It moved like a gecko on glass. I saw its face 2 feet from my boot. My boot struck that face. The sole slid on scale and then caught on an eye ridge. The thing hissed like air from a truck tire. It didn't fall. It blinked. A hand came up, claws opened. Then Top leaned over and put the shotgun right into its mouth and pulled the trigger. The creature's head blew apart. Not like meat, like a clay jar struck with a hammer. Chips everywhere. Wet stuff everywhere else. The body let go. It dropped into the shaft and bounced once with a sound I don't know how to call anything but wrong. Far below, something hissed back. Louder. Many throats. We reached the top. We rolled onto the warehouse floor like fish onto a dock. We stared at each other and did a count again. 13. I won't name who was missing by then. If I say each name, I'll see each face, and we'll be here all night with the lantern turned low and no one will sleep. The lieutenant stood. He moved like an old man, though he was young. "Seal it," he said. Not loud, like a prayer. "Seal it now." The engineers were ready. They'd been waiting on the word. That's the part that tells you someone knew more than we did. Charges were already set. The suit washed us with a face like bad milk. "Wait," I said, and I don't know why I said it. Maybe I thought the men we'd lost would find air if we left it open. Maybe I thought something wanted us to hurry. The lieutenant didn't wait. He nodded to the engineer. "Do it," they wired. We moved back. The suit covered his ears and ducked his head like the blast could erase what he'd seen. The charges went off like a car smash, but bigger. The floor jumped. The pigeons rose in a whoosh. Dust came out of the hole in a brown fountain. We coughed and spat. When the cloud thinned, there was no hole. Just a pile of broken knot rock and a ring bent like soft lead. We listened. Dust settled on our helmets. Somewhere a pigeon cooed like an idiot. No sound came from below except the sound you hear when you tell yourself you don't hear anything. The lieutenant looked at us one by one. His face was made of angles. "We never speak of this," he said. "Not to anyone." He didn't add or else. He didn't have to. The suit stepped forward and said it for him, soft and pretty, like a man offering a clean napkin. "Thank you for your service," he said. We left that warehouse with fewer boots marching than went in. It felt like the whole city noticed. The street looked at us. The sky looked at us. Somewhere a siren went off for an air raid drill that wasn't on the schedule, and we all flinched like dogs who weren't beaten but knew what a stick was for. That's where most stories end. With the hole sealed. With the lie spoken. With the booze poured that night and the names crossed out in a neat hand. But this didn't end there. We got 3 days of quiet. During those days, the city acted like itself too hard. People laughed too loud. Women tied scarves too tight. Men smoked too fast. The radio said words about Europe and ships and convoys. The radio did not say anything about creatures under the city because the radio never says what makes sense until it's too late. The second night, the guard on the warehouse said he saw lights in the cracks. He said he saw green. He said he heard scratching like nails at a door. He called the number the suit had given him. The suit did not pick up. No one came. The third night, a dog went missing from a yard on the next block. The man who owned it found a smear in the alley that looked like oil and wasn't. He hosed it down and used lye. It came back. That same night, a man who lived 2 streets over woke to a sound like someone sliding a trunk across his floor. He went to look. The trunk hadn't moved, but there were marks on the floorboards. 3 long grooves. He moved out the next day without saying goodbye to the landlord. Top came to our tents in the dark. He didn't light a lamp. "Pack light," he said. We got a call. The lieutenant stood by a truck with its headlamps hooded. He held a piece of paper. His shoulders looked carved out of soap. "We go back," he said. "Different access. Not the warehouse. There's a concern about the sewer lines." "Those aren't sewers," I said. I didn't mean to speak. The words fell out. "I know," he said. "We go anyway." We rolled with 2 trucks. No stencils. No flags. Just men in dull woolen boots that didn't squeak. We had more shotguns this time. And 2 men carried the big flame tanks. "Burners," Top said. He patted one like a dog. He told the men carrying them to stand between us like saints. We didn't bring lanterns. We brought battery lamps instead. The engineers said there were gases. They warned us a spark could put us on the roof. The men joked about wanting to see the Hollywood sign up close. No one laughed out loud. We stopped near the river where it bent under a street. A locked iron door waited under a bridge. The engineer cut the lock with a tool that looked like a pistol that ate steel. He opened the door. A smell like rotten eggs and coins and old rain walked out to say hello. Inside was a service gallery, this one clearly made by men. Brick, mortar, drips that had a calendar of their own. It ran straight for a while and then sloped down to a round mouth. "Old stormworks," the engineer said, quiet as if the brick could hear. "Built on top of something older." "What something?" Top asked. The engineer didn't answer. He didn't know. Or he knew and liked not saying better. We moved down. The lamps showed rust on the bolts and old names scratched into soot. Lou, Pete, Mama. We stepped around puddles. The water there held oil colors that moved slow and made my stomach tilt. At the round mouth, the brick stopped. The knot rock began. The curve of it ran with a smoother hand than any mason's. The lines etched there were deeper. There were more of them. A story on the walls. A snake on a snake biting a snake. Some of the grooves were filled with a dark tar. It smelled like a funeral at sea. We heard the hissing then. Not our hissing. Not the hiss of a lantern. It came from down the throat. A breath in, a breath out. Like something too big to fit in one body. "Lamps off," the lieutenant said. "Sir?" Top whispered. "Off. We killed the lamps." The dark sucked them into its teeth. Our eyes went big and then had something to look at. A green glow pulsed down the tunnel like a heartbeat. It came on and off. On and off. A slow, lazy thing. The glow did not light the walls. It lit the floor in a broken pattern like shining through a grate, or scales, or something with holes in it. The radio gave a little laugh of static like a child who wants to confess. The radio man muted it. "On me," the lieutenant said. We went. We saw murals farther in. You could call them murals. They were carved, then burnt black, then carved again. Figures too tall for any doorway. Heads like helmets. Eyes like almonds lit from behind. A river, a mountain. The sea rolling in where it didn't belong. Houses drowning. Little human stickmen drawn like jokes. The tall figures waded through the flood and built domes underground and didn't drown. Their hands had 3 fingers. Each finger was a knife. I looked at that story and felt sick like I'd eaten a penny roll. "They were here when the water was where it wasn't," I said. Top didn't answer. He didn't love ghost talk. He believed in 2 things, gravity and orders. Sometimes the second beat the first. Not always. We reached another chamber. Smaller, low ceiling. The air moved. Not a lot. Just enough to make your lips feel like paper. In the middle, on the floor, there was a grate. The glowing came from beneath it. The holes were shaped like almond eyes. The light pulsed up and you could see down a little. Something moved. Slow. A roll and a flex-like breath. I don't know what we looked at. A machine that was an animal. An animal that learned to be a machine. The heat off it licked our cheeks. To the left, an opening breathed cold. To the right, a narrow slit took the green light and made it into a blade. The lieutenant made his hands talk what his mouth wouldn't. Left. 2 men with a burner. Me and Top took point. We slid along the wall like crabs. The scale of it drove me nuts. You could feel how each measure was wrong. Too big by inches. Too small by a hair. Made for something standing like a man who never was a man. The hissing came again. Closer. Then we saw eyes. They crawled the wall like jewels on a necklace. The nearest head slid into view, and I told my hands to bring the rifle up, and they did, but too slow. It came for me with the kind of quiet run cats use when they mean it. Top hit it with the burner. The flame looked weak at first, like someone's cigarette in a high wind. Then the tank coughed and coughed again, and fire ate the room. It licked the ceiling and then slid down. It found the thing's skin and loved it. I smelled meat and road tar and hair and old fish all at once. The creature shrieked. It wasn't like any sound I'd heard. It had words in it, shapes of words. It said, or seemed to say, something like stop. Then it had no mouth, and the words were just heat. They didn't like fire. That was the first rule we learned. We also learned the second. Fire made them mad. They came through the narrow slit like smoke turned to bones. 3, 5, 7, 7. My count broke and ran. The other burner lit. The men behind the tank screamed at the heat and kept pouring it. The rifles cracked. The shotguns boomed. The air went gray with ash and white with smoke. The floor grew slick. The grate in the center glowed brighter like the thing below wanted to watch. One of them grabbed a burner man by the tank. Claws sank in. The man screamed but didn't drop. He was a good soldier. He held that wand and he kept drip-feeding fire into the face of the thing choking him. The creature's flesh blistered and popped like mud in a hot spring. The smell came back. The man sagged and slid out of his harness. The tank stayed in the claws like a prize. The creature lifted it to its mouth and bit. Teeth met metal. The tank burst. You have never heard a sound like that. The room tore. Heat went like a ghost through me and took my breath with it. I lay on my back and watched sparks eat the air where I'd been standing. The skin on my cheek bubbled like bacon for a second, then settled. The lamps blew. The only light left was green from below, and the orange sag of the other burner, now lying on the floor like a dying snake. The lieutenant came through the steam like a man in a dream. He grabbed my collar. He pulled me into a side cut. Up, he said. His hair was singed. His eyebrows were gone. He smiled like a skull. Up now, Corporal. We ran. The tunnel down which we ran had no right to be there. It wasn't on our sketch. It sloped up. It grew tight. The walls brushed my shoulders. The green light went behind and left only the memory of heat. The hissing didn't follow. Not right away. It had other work to do. It had men to eat that I left behind. That sentence sits in my mouth like a hot coin. We reached a small room with no carving. Just smooth knot rock with a dome for a roof. In the center, a pillar grew from the floor to the ceiling like a stalagmite that finally got promoted. It had holes where hands might go. That's how we found the secret of it. You put hands there and pulled, and the pillar moved. It turned. A section of wall slid aside. That's the kind of door you make when you have forever. The hole behind the wall took us up into cold air. Not a warehouse, not the river. A service crawl space under a hospital, white tile above. Little green tiles under that and a checkerboard. The crawl stank of disinfectant and old breath. We heard shoes squeaking above us, the roll of a cart, a soft cough, normality so strong it hurt. We crawled into a laundry room where a woman in a white dress folded sheets. She did not scream. She put a hand on her heart. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, she said, very calm. You look like hell. We did. We were gray men with burnt edges. We walked out through a side door and found the alley and gulped air like drunks. Over the city, the sirens went again. Not a drill. The wrong time of day. The wrong tone. People poured into the streets looking at the sky. I looked down at the curb and saw 3 long scratches in the concrete. I ran a finger along one, smooth as glass. New. We went back that night with more men and sealed the hospital crawl. We used concrete. We used steel bars. We used a prayer. That's not a joke. The chaplain came and said the kind with Latin in it. The concrete set like a good lie. But the city now was a block of cheese with a family of mice. Seal one hole, they use another. We didn't sleep those weeks. We walked in pairs, in 3s, in 5s. We checked pump rooms and bell towers and basements full of mops. We found marks sometimes. Claw grooves up the inside of a pillar. A smear where it shouldn't be. A smell like warm iron in a field after rain. Once we found a man who had been a man. He lay behind a stack of crates. He was empty. That's the only way I can say it. He had all the pieces but none of what makes them hum. We never learned his name. I gave him mine for one day so he'd not be alone. Then I took it back and left him with a tag that read John Doe and thought how cruel the world is to men who get no story. The papers were full of something else by then. Hawaii had burned. Ships had burned. Men had burned. War stopped being a rumor and became the only thing. That was luck, if you want to call it luck. The city could scream at the sky and not at the ground. We had cover. We had chaos. It's easy to hide monsters in a loud room. And then came the night of guns in the sky. They call it the weird night now. The night batteries along the coast woke up and shot stars at nothing. Ask some men and they'll tell you about weather balloons and nerves and shadows on fog. Ask me and I'll tell you about the ground shaking like something big rolled under it and eyes on the bluffs glowing green, then gone. We stood on a roof near the river and watched tracers climb and arc and die. The city lights flicked off block by block. The sirens made their long, lonely call. I felt the shape of the tunnels under my boots like veins under skin. I felt a pulse. The roof had tar bubbles that popped and smelled like a road in August. I wanted to lie down, face to the tar, and tell it I was sorry. The lieutenant joined me at the parapet. He handed me a cigarette. I didn't smoke then. I do now. He lit it for me with hands that didn't shake. They're not in the sky, he said. They're under us. I know, I said. We're going back, he said. We can't keep plugging holes. How many, I asked. Enough. Enough meant 20 men again. New ones this time. The old ones were buried or moved to other assignments. Clean belts, the suit had said. New eyes. He'd smiled when he said it, I wanted to put him down that shaft and let the dark do the kind thing it does to men who don't deserve faces. We didn't go through the warehouse. We didn't go under the hospital. The engineers had another map. It looked like a plate of spaghetti. Here, the youngest one said, pointing with a pencil stub. The old storm tunnel that never worked. It intersects. We think. The line stops on the map, but not on the ground. We entered through a culvert drained almost dry. The smell of old rain. Trash caught on the grate like a dead rooster's tail. Rats watched us without fear. They belonged. We didn't. The burners came with us again. Shotguns, rifles, a sledgehammer for luck. Top carried it. He said, "If the world won't break open, I'll help it." We moved like we learned. Slow, quiet, eyes up and down and on the corners where corners didn't belong. We listened for the scrape. We heard it sometimes, far away. Then, not at all. The old storm line narrowed and then widened, like a throat that didn't want to swallow but knew it had to. We came to a wall built where the city got tired of paying for a tunnel that led to nothing. The wall was brick. We knocked on it with the sledge. It sounded like someone trying to lie. Top grinned. He swung. The first hit cracked a seam. The second popped 2 bricks out. After the third, some mortar fell with a sad sound like a sigh. Behind that wall lay the dark. The knot rock began again. We stepped into heat. We had a plan this time. Not a good one, but a plan. We'd go to the heart, the green-lit great room. The heat engine, if that's what it was, we'd plant charges. We'd get out. We'd drop the roof on their heads and make them dig like men. Maybe they'd dig. Maybe they'd decide the city above tasted like poison after all and go back to whatever sea-dried and left them angry. We moved faster. The carved lines on the walls grew thicker. They crossed and recrossed like a net. In some places, the grooves were filled with something that glimmered like mica. My skin crawled. I had the feeling if I pressed my ear to the wall, I'd hear a far song. Not for me. The great room loomed ahead, the glow breathing like a slow bellows. The heaters in our burner packs ticked. Sweat ran down my back and made a river down my spine. The lieutenant signaled halt. He pointed at the ceiling, the hinges of a trap. Another door. We didn't touch it. We'd seen too many of their tricks. He pointed to the center. He pointed to the Pac-Man with charges. The Pac-Man nodded and touched the straps like a man touches a cross, and then the eyes opened again. Not just a few. All along the walls, all around the grate, from the ceiling, in the floor. It was like looking into the night sky and realizing all the stars stare back. The hiss rolled out and made my fillings sing. The lieutenant did not say fire. He said, hold. The eyes watched. He took 1 step forward. He raised his hands, palms out, the burners lower. The rifles held but didn't spit. He spoke. We will go. We will seal. Leave the city alone. His voice sounded wrong in that place. Thin. But the words did what words sometimes do. They changed the air. Something came up through the grate. Not one of them. Bigger, different. It did not crawl. It rose. A head without a neck. Not right. Not right. A crest like a crown of old bone. Eyes set too high. It stared at the lieutenant, then slowly at Top, then at me. I had the sick vertigo feeling you get in church when you suddenly believe and you're not sure you want to. I wanted to fall. I wanted to kneel. I wanted to shoot. I did none of those things. I held my breath and counted the dings in the barrel band of my rifle. The thing made a sound. Not a hiss, a layered voice like wind pushed through reeds. If you've ever heard a canyon talk when a storm gathers, you know the feel. I heard the shape of words in it. Old words, tired words. I heard this, we were here when you dogs had gills. I heard this, you break our roof, we break your towers. I heard this, go. I do not know if those were the words. I know that is what I heard. The lieutenant lowered his hands. He nodded. He stepped back. Then the radio on the man behind me chose that moment to squawk something from some officer somewhere about boats in the channel and to scramble at once. The squawk knifed the air. The eyes flared. The thing from the grate turned. It moved faster than thought. In stories, this is where someone brave does the brave thing and wins a little win even if he loses later. That's not how it went. The brave thing got eaten fast. The burners lit. Top had already started to pull the man with the radio back when the flame opened like a white flower. The room went to war. The hissing turned to screams. Claws hit stone, teeth hit bone. We fought like gamblers with rent due. The Pac-Man ran to the grate. He slapped charges like a baker slaps loaves into an oven. He looked at me. I nodded. I covered him with fire that wasn't from my hands and bullets that came from a place below my brain. He finished. He pulled the wire. He yelled, "Go!" We went. What does running in hell feel like? I can tell you. Heat on your back like a hand pushing. Air that comes in with knives and goes out with smoke. The taste of old copper and regret. The sound of your friend behind you and then not behind you. You don't look back. Not because you don't care. Because you can't carry the look and the man both. The Pac-Man fell at the bend. His boot slipped in a smear. He hit the wall with his teeth. A shape fell on him from above, claws first, and his jaw was open to scream when the thing found his tongue. The scream got cut in half and left there. I fired into its face until the rifle clicked empty. The creature bled the color of old motor oil. It did not care. It cared when Top hit it with the sledgehammer. The sledgehammer did what a sledgehammer does. It forgot there were scales and put all the weight of a man with hate in his shoulders into the swing. The creature's jaw broke. It walked on. The Pac-Man did not. We reached the brick wall we'd knocked through. We poured out into the culvert. The night air cut our lungs like early winter. The engineer waited there with a switchbox in his lap like a baby. He saw our faces and didn't ask. He did what he was told. He closed the switch. The earth lifted. The culvert went bright. A dull, deep boom rolled through the city and made the pigeons rise. You have never seen so many pigeons. You have never heard a silence like the one that followed when the boom finished its work, and the city remembered it had a heart and started beating again. We lay on the gravel. We panted. We counted thighs and arms and fingers. The lieutenant stood and checked our count. He shook his head once. He sat down on the culvert lip and put his face in his hands. I'd never seen him break a rule like that. Officers keep their faces on. It's what they're for. He let it slip. He put it back on after a minute, but I saw the crack where the light got out. We left. We sealed. The suit shook our hands with the corners of his fingers. He said the right words. He wrote the wrong ones later on official paper. A gas pocket. A cave-in. Some men lost their balance. Some men always do. And the city slept. Sort of. War took us. We went east. We went west. Some of us to islands. Some to Europe. We carried our ghosts like we carried our packs. You can set either down, but not for long. I saw men die in jungles, and a few rise like enraged saints. I slept in mud and on ships and with my eyes open. I did not forget the green eyes. Some nights I saw them in holes in trees. Some nights in a foxhole's black. Some nights in the barrel of my rifle. I put the rifle down and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. When the war ended, we came back and the city had new scars. Bridges. Highways. Concrete like a river turned to bone. The old warehouses were gone. New warehouses took their place. The hospital I crawled under got a new wing. The laundry woman retired. She raised parakeets and died in a chair with a book in her lap. The river kept pretending to be a real river in its new straight coat. It never fooled anyone. Top died with a hammer next to his bed. He fixed his own porch steps at 80. He put the sledge by his pillow every night for 30 years. He said the weight helped him sleep. He laughed when he said it and then stopped and stared at me like a man who hears a train that still hasn't come around the bend. The lieutenant made colonel and then didn't. There are ways the world pays back men who try to keep it honest. He got moved to a desk near a window that looked at parking lots. He never got fat. He walked every day at lunch. He carried a dime in his pocket and rubbed it so smooth you couldn't tell whose face was on it. He never married. He died standing, looking out a window on a day that smelled like hot rain. I worked. I drank sometimes. I got married once. It didn't stick. I didn't keep anything that wasn't tied to me with wire. The wire rusted. I sat nights with the radio on low and listened to baseball. The announcer's voice had a good hum to it. I'd close my eyes and lay the diamond out in my head. I could watch the game and not see eyes in the outfield. Then one year, the ground shook hard. Freeways fell. Houses tipped. The news put numbers to it. They always do. A 7 or an 8 or some other word that means a lot. The camera showed a crack in the concrete down by the river. In that crack, for a second, I saw a curve that was not rock. Smooth, etched. And I saw 3 grooves beside it, long, glass slick. I turned the radio off. I went for a walk. You get old and you lose people and words and weight, and you come to an edge where the world, which has always been too big, is finally a little too small, and you find yourself wanting to go back to one bad place and see if it's still there. I walked to the warehouse street. The old warehouse was a parking lot. A diner sat where the brick used to sit. People ate pancakes where my men bled. I stood by the glass and looked at their plates. One of them looked up at me and smiled and nodded like I'd told him a joke. The radio behind the counter played a song about summer that didn't know what winter was. I kept walking. I took alleys that smelled like bleach and onion and old sweat. I found a door under a bridge that had been welded shut a long time ago. The weld had crusts like an old scab, but near the hinge there was a scratch. 3 scratches. New. I put my fingers in them. They fit. They fit like finger holes in a bowling ball, if the bowler had hands too long for the lane. I heard something down there. Not a scrape, not a hiss. A slow pull like a sleeping thing turning over so it can dream better. I stood for a long time. The city moved, cars sliding past to jobs that were clocks and bosses that were clocks and little kids with lunches packed in brown paper bags with their names on them. The sun came out like a man who's late for a date and has one shoe untied. He did his best. Shadows went this way and that like dogs with opinions. The door was still a door. The scratches were still the same dark. My hand was still my hand and shook only a little. I set my palm flat, not on the scratches, on the steel. It was warm. I left. I went home. I put a glass of water on the table and watched the ripples. They were small. They were regular. They came and went like the breath of a big animal asleep in the underplace. Years turned around the table like crows around a lone cottonwood. The glass didn't stomp. Here's the truth. We didn't beat them. We were let go. Fire hurts them. Noise wakes them. Sealing holes buys time, nothing more. So if you hear scraping under your floor, don't move. If your dog growls at the basement, let him. Don't open drains. Don't go looking. They're still there. Always will be. We survived because they allowed it. That's the only reason I'm here telling you. So that's the end of our video. If you made it this far, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free. And if you want more terrifying encounters like this one, check out the other videos on screen right now. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there. See you soon.